Hi there, and welcome to the lesson on making generalizations. So let's take a look at this board. What can you say about all of these things that you see on the board here? In looking at it, your first answer is probably they're all round, or they all have points to them, or maybe even they all have a center point. At first you might think they're all colorful, but there are a few in here that are actually seem to be just black and white. So round, center point, maybe some of them have 6 points, some have even more, 8 or 9, some have multiple points. Those are all some generalizations that you might make about these objects. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, those sweeping statements that you can make about a group of objects. So today we are going to define generalizations. We will also discuss validity when making generalizations. We'll look at a few samples, of course. We'll also try to see it in action. Can you actually explain generalizations in a reading? And we'll take a quick look at archetypes. Then we will move into the classroom and do some more practice. So first off, a generalization. A generalization defined is a general rule drawn from looking at specific facts or characteristics of a set of objects and figuring out what they have in common. So looking here on the screen, you can see we have a banana, an orange, and an apple. So what do these things have in common? You probably think about what you know, your own experiences. You've probably eaten or at least tried these things. You've taken a science class. You know that what they all have in common is that they are a fruit. Okay, each of them is a different type of fruit. Now that would be a generalization about these three objects. A generalization is two parts. So the first part is made up of specific common details of a group of objects. So thinking about that fruit, we know they have seeds inside. They have a fleshy part that grows around the seeds. Some of them might have juice or oils in them. The other part of a generalization is adding your own previous experiences with other groups of this object. So you might think of other fruits that you know, grapes, papayas, mangoes, peaches, all the different kinds of fruits that are out there. When you put what you're looking at with the object or group of objects in front of you and add that to your own previous experiences with other groups of this object, you can come up with a guess or a generalization that assumes similarity among all of this type of object. Pretty easy, right? So generalizations, when we think about generalizations, they can be either valid or invalid. Some people will also say that the generalizations can be either true or false. If a generalization is valid, it is well supported by facts and experience and logic. If a generalization is invalid, it is not supported by all the facts. Experience and logic tell us it cannot be true. Okay, so let's look at a couple of examples here. I'm going to ask that you use your sidebars to answer some of these questions. I want you to tell me whether you think these are valid or invalid. So the first one, here we go. Everyone loves pizza. What do you say? Is this valid or invalid? Okay, let's look at our second one. Malls sell shoes and clothing. Is that valid or invalid? Think about these generalizations. Third one. All schools are made of bricks. That one should be pretty easy for cyber school kids, right? Okay, the very last one here is all birds have wings. Is that a valid generalization or an invalid generalization? So looking at these, everyone loves pizza. Well, I could tell you personally, I know 3 or 4 people who do not like pizza. So that would be an invalid generalization because it can't be supported by facts. Okay, there are indeed people out there that do not like pizza. Malls sell shoes and clothing. I would be willing to guess that there are some malls out there that don't sell shoes or clothing. However, in general, the sense that we think about a mall, I think most of them do sell shoes and clothing. So I think that would be a valid generalization, although it's one of those cases where you might find some one-offs or some exceptions to the rule. like an auto mall where you just have rows and rows down the street of car dealerships. So that would not sell shoes and clothing. All schools are made of bricks. Obviously, here we are in cyber school. Is your house made of brick? If it is, then maybe your school is made of brick. But mine is not. Mine is made of wood and sheetrock and a metal roof. So not all schools are made of bricks. And of course, the last one, all birds have wings. This is actually a biological characteristic of birds. And although not all birds can fly, if it has wings, it is a bird. Okay, let's move forward and talk about another type of generalization that people tend to make. This is called stereotypes, and I'm sure you guys have heard of stereotypes, if not have even been the victim of a stereotype before. So generalizations that are made about people are called stereotypes, okay? And stereotyping people is generally considered a negative thing to do. When you lump people together under one label and then assume it is true for all people within a gender, culture, race, etc., you are ignoring individuality and personal choice. Okay, so be aware of this and try not to stereotype people in your writing or in your life. Okay, give everybody the benefit of the doubt. Don't judge them until you actually get to know them. Over here we've got this cute little cartoon. If it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, it could be a dragon doing a duck impersonation, so keep that in mind. Okay, moving forward, we're going to look at this activity, when we come back to class. But for now, just get your thinking caps on and maybe start getting some ideas down on paper if you want to. We're going to look at different types of generalizations, making true generalizations and making false generalizations. So here's an example in reading. I promised you this. Choose one of these generalizations and write an explanation of it to the right of the screen. So these are from the two stories that we've read so far. The first one is from The Monkey's Paw. It's where Mrs. White says, "I suppose all old soldiers are the same," said Mrs. White. "The idea of our listening to such nonsense." What exactly is she supposing or assuming or trying to say in this quote? On the other side on the right, we have Story of an Hour. She did not hear the story as many women have heard the same, with a paralyzed inability to accept its significance. That's a little harder. Choose one of those and see if you can explain what kind of assumption or generalization are the characters making in one of these statements. Great job. So if you looked at The Monkey's Paw, hopefully you got that Mrs. White is making an assumption about old soldiers and that they just have a lot of stories and you can't really believe everything that they say. As far as The Story of an Hour, it's basically saying that a lot of women, when they hear that their husband has been killed, they're frozen. They can't accept it, they can't face reality, and they almost can't move or breathe, or they don't cry, they just kind of sit frozen, staring, almost unthinking. And that's not how this woman reacted, which was kind of breaking that generalization or that stereotype of people or women who have heard about some great tragedy. Okay, so hopefully you got that for both of those, and we're moving right along now. So let's talk a little bit about archetypes. And in this, we're going to look at the definition. An archetype, according to Google, okay, is a very typical example of a certain person or thing. A book is a perfect archetype of the genre, or the book is a perfect archetype of the genre. An archetype can be an original that has been imitated, okay, or a recurrent symbol or motif in literature, art, or mythology. Okay, so an archetype is, when we're thinking about literature, an archetype is generally a type of character. So you can lump different types of characters into categories, and authors can use that when they're building their characters, and readers can use that to kind of know what to expect out of certain characters. There are many, many, many different types of archetypes. Sorry. So here we go. What we're going to do is buckle up. We are actually going to switch to another video, and you're going to watch about archetypes. Be sure while you're watching that video that if you have any questions, you jot them down and bring them back to the classroom to chat about them. Okay, get ready to watch your next video.